Ever get that feeling like, the internet's kind of got you figured out, like a little too well?
Yeah.
Like those ads that seem to follow you everywhere you go online, or how some websites like magically remember all your favorite things?
Yeah, it's a little spooky sometimes.
Well, today we're diving deep into the tech behind all that, cookies.
And it goes way beyond just targeted ads.
Right.
Cookies are really at the core of how we experience the web these days and how much control we actually have over our own data.
So to help us unpack all this, we're turning to a pretty interesting source.
Oh.
A Spanish law firm.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, MCHM Abogados. They're based in Almeria, Spain, and they specialize in data protection, among other things. And if you want to check them out yourself, their website is website address here.
Very cool.
Now, what's really interesting is that their location gives us a unique perspective on all of this.
How so?
Well, you see, data protection laws, especially in the EU, are way more strict than in a lot of other parts of the world.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So this deep dive isn't just about the technical stuff. It's about understanding how those laws affect your experience online, wherever you are in the world.
Exactly. So where do we start? Cookies 101.
Right. Let's start with the basics. What exactly are cookies?
Okay.
All right. I'm going to give this analogy a shot.
Okay.
Imagine your favorite cafe, right? The barista knows your usual. Maybe they even chat with you about your weekend plans.
I like it.
Cookies are kind of like that, but for websites.
That's a great way to think about it.
Really?
Yeah. Technically, cookies are these tiny little text files that websites put on your device. And these files store bits of information about your browsing, like your preferences, your logins, all that kind of stuff.
So it's not the website itself remembering me. It's like these little files acting as notes.
Precisely. And that's what allows sites to personalize your experience, keep you logged in, and, well, sometimes track your activity as you move around the web.
Speaking of our legal experts, I noticed on their website that they're available for consultations until 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday. That's a long day.
It is, yeah. And they even have an emergency contact number outside of those hours. Wow, they're serious about accessibility.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if those long hours are because, data protection is such a hot topic these days.
Maybe.
Okay, back to cookies. Why should we, the everyday internet users, actually care about these things? I mean, are they really that big a deal?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, it depends.
On what?
Like any tool, cookies themselves aren't inherently good or bad. It all comes down to how they're used.
Okay, so like a hammer can build a house, but it can also, do some not so great things.
Exactly. On the plus side, cookies can do some really helpful things, like remember what's in your online shopping cart.
Oh, yeah.
Keep you logged into your accounts. Even personalize your news feed based on your interests.
Well, that actually sounds pretty convenient.
It can be. But on the other hand, cookies can also be used to track your browsing across different websites, building up this super detailed profile of what you do online.
Okay.
And that profile can be used for targeted advertising, sometimes even without you really knowing about it or giving your consent.
Okay, that's where things start to get a little creepy. Nobody likes feeling like they're constantly being watched online.
Right, and that's precisely where data protection laws come into play, especially in the EU. They have some of the toughest regulations in the world, like the GDPR.
GDPR, yeah, I've definitely heard of that, but what does it actually do for us regular folks?
Think of it like this. It's a set of rules designed to give you more control over your personal information online.
Okay.
It basically lays down the law on how companies can collect, process, and store your data. And cookies are a big part of that.
So websites can't just sprinkle cookies all over our devices without any consequences anymore?
At least not in the EU, no.
Okay.
They have to be much more transparent about how they use cookies.
So how does that work?
Well, they need to tell you what cookies they use and why they use them, get your explicit permission before using certain types of cookies, and give you ways to easily manage your cookie preferences.
Interesting. Now, the law firm's website also mentions another regulation, the Spanish LSSI-CE.
Ah, yes. That stands for Ley de Servicios de la Sociedad de la Información y de Comercio Electrónico. Basically, it's how Spain has implemented the EU's e-privacy directive.
Okay.
And it adds another layer of rules around cookies and online communication in general.
So double the protection in Spain.
You could say that. It really shows how seriously they take user privacy in the EU, and it also highlights how approaches to data protection can vary quite a bit around the world.
Speaking of their approach, the firm's website mentions that they're members of the ICAA, their local bar association, and that they can practice law across all of Spain. That sounds pretty official.
Oh yeah, the ICAA, the Illustrious College of Attorneys of Almeria, it's a sign that they're recognized and respected within their profession.
Well, good to know we're getting insights from a reputable source.
Absolutely.
So with all these regulations in place, what do websites actually have to do to be considered compliant? Is there like a checklist of requirements?
There is, and luckily MCHM Abogados have provided a really clear summary on their website. They outline 5 key requirements for cookie compliance.
5. Okay, let's hear them. What's the first one?
All right, number 1 is transparency and information. Websites need to be upfront about their cookie use. No more hiding in the fine print.
Got it.
They need to explain what cookies are, the types they use, and what they use them for.
So no more hiding in the shadows. Users have the right to know what's going on with their data.
You've got it. That's the foundation of these regulations. What's next on the list?
Okay, let's see. Informed consent. This one sounds pretty important. What does that mean in practice?
This is a big one. Basically, it means websites can't just assume they have permission to put cookies on your device.
Okay.
They have to actually get your consent, especially for cookies that aren't, absolutely necessary for the website to work.
Ah, so that's why we see those cookie banners everywhere, the ones that pop up on pretty much every website these days.
Exactly. Those banners are supposed to inform you about the site's cookie practices, and give you options, like to accept all the cookies, reject them, or even customize your cookie settings.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, though, I usually just click accept all without really reading anything.
Haha, you're not alone there. It's tempting to just click through, right?
Right.
But, these regulations are meant to empower you as the user. The idea is to make those banners more user-friendly so you actually understand what you're agreeing to.
Okay, good to know. Well, I'm glad someone's looking out for us. So we've got transparency, informed consent. What's the next requirement?
Number 3 is having a cookie policy.
A cookie policy.
Yeah, every website should have a dedicated policy that explains their practices in detail when it comes to cookies. Usually you can find it linked somewhere in the footer of the website.
So it's kind of like their own rule book for cookies.
Exactly. It should lay out everything. What types of cookies they use, what they use them for, how long they last, and even who gets access to the data collected by the cookies.
Sounds like something worth reading, but I'm willing to bet it's buried in a ton of legal mumbo-jumbo.
Yeah, sadly, that's often the case. But again, the GDPR is pushing for these policies to be more user-friendly so that, regular people can actually understand them.
Good. All right, what else is on the list?
So the 4th requirement is all about managing preferences. Essentially, you as the user should be able to change your cookie settings whenever you want. That means being able to withdraw your consent, delete cookies, or adjust your settings as needed.
So it's not like a one-time decision. I can change my mind later.
Absolutely. It's about putting you in control of your data and how you want to experience the website.
Okay, I like that. Flexibility is important. What's the final requirement?
Last but not least, websites need to stay updated. Cookie regulations are always evolving. Best practices change. Things happen. So websites need to make sure their policies, banners, and practices are all up to date.
So it's not just set it and forget it.
Not at all. It's an ongoing process. They have to adapt to new regulations and always make sure they're respecting their users' data.
This all makes it sound super serious. What happens if a website just ignores all these rules? Are there consequences?
There are, definitely. And they can be pretty serious.
Like what?
Well, we're talking big fines, potential lawsuits, damage to the company's reputation, that kind of thing.
So not just a slap on the wrist. They can actually get in real trouble.
Absolutely. Regulators, especially over in the EU, are taking data protection very, very seriously these days. They have the power to issue some hefty fines to companies that aren't following the rules, violating GDPR and other privacy laws.
Gotcha. Do you have any examples, like a company that learned the hard way about not following those cookie regulations?
There have been some pretty high-profile cases, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is this tech giant. They got hit with a multi-million euro fine a while back.
Wow.
Yeah, for using these, sneaky cookie banners and basically tracking users without getting their proper consent. It was a huge story. Definitely hurt their image.
Ouch. Yeah, that's got to sting.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale for sure. Companies can't just brush this stuff aside anymore.
Right. So it sounds like we're not totally powerless here.
Exactly. And it's not just the companies feeling the pressure. Consumers are getting more aware of their privacy rights, too. They're demanding more transparency and control over their data.
Okay, so knowing all that, what can we do to protect our privacy online? It honestly feels a little overwhelming.
It's really not as complicated as you might think.
Okay, good.
The biggest thing is just being aware, being informed. So pay attention to those cookie banners when they pop up.
Right.
Don't just blindly click accept all. Take a minute to see what they're saying, what your options are. Maybe even check out the website's privacy policy, get a better understanding of your rights as a user.
So being a little more proactive.
Exactly. You have more control than you realize. Like in those cookie banners, you can customize your settings. You can block certain types of cookies. Only allow the ones that seem essential. It's your choice.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any, tools or anything that can help us manage all of this besides just reading every cookie banner, I mean?
Oh, absolutely. There are a bunch of browser extensions out there and other privacy-focused tools that are designed to help you manage cookies, block trackers, things like that.
Might have to look into those.
Yeah, they can be super helpful. And remember, you always have the right to request access to the data a company has collected about you. You can even ask them to correct it or delete it. And if you change your mind about the consent you've given, you can always withdraw it.
Wow, I didn't realize we had that much power.
That's pretty empowering, right?
Yeah. It's good to know we're not just, stuck in this system.
Exactly. You're not a passive passenger. Knowing about all of this, understanding these concepts, it helps you navigate the online world more safely, more confidently. It's about making informed choices.
I love that. Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive. I had no idea that these, tiny text files could have such a huge impact on our privacy.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And with technology constantly evolving, it's more important than ever to stay aware of how our data is being used and what we can do to protect ourselves.
Speaking of evolving technology, what about AI? Artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it's everywhere these days.
It is.
How's it being used to collect and analyze our data? And what are the ethical considerations there? It seems like a whole other can of worms.
You're right. AI is a big topic these days. Lots of potential benefits, but also some potential risks as well. Maybe that's something we can dig into another time.
I think that's a great idea. Definitely add it to our list for future deep dives.
Definitely. In the meantime, if anyone out there is looking for more information specifically on data protection, I definitely recommend checking out that law firm we talked about, MCHM Abogados in Spain.
Great resource, yeah.
You can find all their contact info on their website, and we'll be sure to include a link in the show notes.
Perfect. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Big takeaway, folks. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay in control of your digital footprint.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive. AECAI.